Good afternoon. Welcome back to Kevin Toll Reads. Hope you're having a great Sunday. And I am here with a book review of Toxic Prey by John Sandford. This is book number 34 in the Lucas Davenport series, written by John Sandford, aka John Camp. This was published in April of 2024. It's in the genre of thriller and crime fiction. I kind of reorged, a little bit of my outline and my approach here on reviews to trying to keep things kind of a little more organized, so bear with me here. Summary of the plot. Kind of the overview is you have these radicalists that come from England and the United States. One of them, Dr. Lionel Scott, is into biology, and they believe that Gaia, Mother Earth, is on a downward trend and is doomed inevitably for destruction because of overpopulation, and there's just not enough resources and everything is left to just run apparent. And so they believe the only way to correct this is by unleashing a virus into the population using a combination of Marburg and some others, and the R factor is like 5 times deadlier than COVID. And so you're looking at a possibility of like an 80% casualty rate. So when Scott ends up disappearing and some things are uncertain, they call in a favor of both the U.S. Marshal's office with Lucas Davenport and Letty with the Homeland Security. And it actually starts with Letty going across the pond to England and meeting the gentleman named Hawkins from MI5, and they go and doing some investigative work over in England and kind of collaborate, and they kind of uncover through some of their background and checking of various people that know Scott that what he could be into, and it doesn't leave them feeling very good. And so their governments kind of put a task force together in the United States. They bring Hawkins over, and the president basically gives them carte blanche to do what they need to do, shoot first, ask questions later. But they need to track down Scott and any of his accomplices and make sure that they're not trying to infect the world. And obviously, they're trying to use major airport places so they can get it spread out throughout the globe. And so it's really the kind of setting is kind of all over, but the nucleus of it takes place in New Mexico. You have these extremists, and it's just a kind of a fast-paced thriller. So that's kind of the overview and summary. Some of the themes, obviously world outbreak. You have, a catch, kind of a thriller, fast-paced. I got to catch these people, figure out where they're from, and what they're doing, what their next plan is, so that way they can stop this. At one point, they give Davenport, his superiors, is like, hey, I just got a call from, the Department of Defense and the Secretary of State, like, you need to stop this. This is going to be your kids, my kids, everyone. And so you definitely get a lot of emotions, which I'll touch on in a little bit. So in terms of likes, I really like the stylistic approach here. I think this is a real return to form for Sandford. I thought the 2 standalone novels that were recent ones, the 2 Letty Davenport books, I thought were a little forced. I gave both of them a 3.9 rating. I thought they were okay, solid. I wouldn't call them good. I mean, it was on the cusp of being good, so to speak, but that's kind of where I rated them. And so I really thought this one was kind of a return to form. I really liked the conversations and some of that are going around. And so I really liked the characters. We had, Lucas, we have Ray, we have Hawkins from MI5, we have Barbara, who was a character in a previous Letty Davenport novel who works with the CIA and is the sharpshooter. And then obviously you have these extremists, and I thought it was made for an interesting character dynamic. You have some homages that get paid at the beginning. They're, Letty and Hawkins, when they're, in England, and they're doing some research into Scott and trying to figure out where he could have gone. They uncover a lady that does a tarot reading, and she mentions, this artist back in Minnesota named Kid. I thought that was really neat. At one point, they were talking about during the outbreak and how many people were going to die. Bob gets mentioned, the former U.S. Marshal that worked with Ray and Lucas. There's some emotional impact in the story that I really enjoyed. The conclusion kind of left me worried. I won't get into the details of why. I don't want to spoil anything, but I thought it was really interesting, and it definitely plays into Lucas, both the kind of weight on his shoulders, his superior telling him, "Hey, you have to stop this," and this is it. This is the real deal. And there was several expletives that are used, and so it's hard to put any excerpts or quotes or memorable quotes on this, but it got pretty real, and I thought it was interesting in how Lucas kind of took that, and then also towards the end, the conclusion and kind of the climax of it and how it affects Letty. I think Lucas gets really kind of choked up, and it actually made me kind of a little awestruck at the end because I was getting worried, and I'll just leave it at that. In terms of there's some real world applications here in terms of this is a fiction tale, but it touches on some kind of real world stuff, and it reminds me of a lot of the talk about Bill Gates, some of the bioengineered food that we're seeing more and more nowadays. Is it really good for us? Are we really trying to do the right thing and how we think about food scarcity and stuff like that? And so I thought there was definitely some touches on the story to real world application. So in terms of dislikes, really the only little criticisms I have was it got a tad slow, and the build up to the final conflict and climax, maybe for 20 pages, I think. And so that was one little nitpick. Letty and Hawkins, they have a romantic relationship at the beginning. It got a little explicit, a little bit. I mean, a little too much for my taste in terms of romance type thing. But it is what it is. Again, I don't really have any memorable quotes. It's hard. This definitely had some swearing in it, and so some of the funnier parts included that. But I can't really share that on here. In terms of rating, I give this a 4.3. Again, I thought this was really good. I really enjoyed this. This was a fast-paced read. Definitely fits that thriller, crime fiction stuff. I looked it up on Goodreads. Goodreads had it at a 4.45, so I'm right there in the ballpark. So I thought this was a good read. This does, and this is kind of a big deal because it does catch me up completely, and it checks off one of those long-term goals. I'm completely caught up with Davenport in that series. I'm caught up with Sandford's series here. Obviously, I want to go back next year and reread and finish out the Virgil Flower series. But I'm caught up with Letty and Lucas and any crossover books into the Lucas Davenport series. So that's really, really good. I feel really accomplished about it. I'm excited about it. And so that's my review. Toxic Prey, John Sandford. I give it a 4.3 out of 5. I hope you're having a great Sunday. Be on the lookout. I will be doing my wrap up later this evening. I hope you have a great Sunday, and I'll talk to you later. Thanks.